Evet, günaydınlar. Bugün 25 Ağustos Pazartesi. Etkinliğin ilk gününü gerçekleştireceğiz. Şu an saat 7 çeyrek. 5 dakika sonra çıkıp kayıt falan olacağız. Bu kayıt esnasında badge falan alınması gerekiyor. Onu alacağız. Daha sonrasında da etkinlik başlayacak. Etkinlikte umarım güzel geçer. Etkinlik öncesinde bayağı bir plan yaptım. Hangi konuşmaya katılabilirim? Konuşmaların konusu ne? Bu konu ne anlatıyor? Bunları bayağı araştırdım. Bakalım bugün bu şekilde başladı. Zaten gün içerisinde de bol bol video çekiyor olacağım. Şimdilik bu şekilde. Sesim geliyordur umarım. Bir tane vejetaryen öğle yemeği aldım. İçinden ekmek, cips ve kurabiye çıktı. Bir tane de içecek almıştım. Hilary konuştum. Bana kendisi LinkedIn üzerinden yazmıştı. Türkiye'deki AI open source projeleri hakkında bilgi verir misin demişti. Oradan bir konuşmamız oldu. Etkinlikte de onunla karşılaştım. Hemen dedim küçük bir röportaj yapabilir miyiz? Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Hilary Carter. I am the Senior Vice President of Research at the Linux Foundation. And I have been working to produce empirical insights into open source since we launched LF Research in 2021.
So could you please describe what open source is?
So open source is a framework for innovation in technologies in terms of having code bases that are that follow a number of freedoms. Those freedoms are the freedom to view the code, to study the code, to modify the code, and to distribute the code. And it's not only specific to software. Open source is a paradigm for mass innovation around other types of inputs necessary for a functioning digital economy. So we have open source software, but we also have open hardware, open standards, and open data. So it's a way of thinking and a way of developing essential elements of the digital world that follow those four freedoms.
Thank you so much. This question is for non-technical people. How can non-technical people contribute open source projects?
So that's a great question because I am an example of a non-technical person who has made a contribution to open source in terms of open content. So it's another element. Through creating content, we've been able to provide a different kind of value. It's a non-code contribution, but data and insights that is empirically rooted is the way that I can contribute to a community. Other people contribute to open source in terms of participating in working groups, speaking at events, and essentially applying their core skill sets, whatever it may be. It may be in marketing, it may be in developer relations and community building, or it may be in events management, all with the aim of supporting the scale of open source projects. So there is a role for everybody, not just coders and technologists, to have a thriving opportunity and a really vibrant career in this space.
Thank you so much. I think you will speak on Wednesday, am I right? You have a session?
So I have a session today on Monday on the opportunities for commercial open source software. We just published a report today on the state of commercial open source software. And I will speak on Tuesday on the Cyber Resilience Act, and I'll speak again on Friday talking about sovereign AI.
I will definitely attend your session.
Well, thank you very much, Mehmet. I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you for this short interview. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I appreciate your effort because this is a great example of a non-code contribution where we're just having a conversation, we're creating content together, and we're sharing it so that other people can learn a little bit more by especially producing short videos that are digestible, that are that feature real people talking about real concepts. So thanks for your efforts.
Thank you. Hello, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Çok memnun oldum. Ben adım Ralph Squillace.
Can I ask a question? How do you know I am Turkish?
Çok iyi konuşabiliyorum. Çok iyi. No, I lived in Turkey for 3 or 4 years, and I really loved it. So of course I see your name, and I'm like, of course that's Turkey. No, I'm Ralph Squillace. I'm a principal product manager at Azure Core Upstream. I work in the microcompute group. And we specialize in new open source technologies like WebAssembly components or virtualization at the hardware layer like the CNCF project, Hyperlight project. And so that's what I do. And I report through the Azure Core organization at Microsoft. That is the organization that builds like Azure Kubernetes service and things like that. We report up through Brendan Burns.
I was listening to your presentation and I really like that you said LLM doesn't have ego, they don't have identity.
Yeah.
So could you please explain this more?
Talk about that again?
Yes.
So the idea is that the metaphor I use, the story I use to tell you is like, if you feel like you need a cup of coffee or you want to go to get lunch, you get up and you start walking toward the food or the coffee.
Yeah.
If somebody interrupts you on the way and says, hey, you got to go back to your desk or you got to go back home because this happened or whatever, they're essentially injecting a new context for you. They're injecting a new order, a new objective, shall we say. But as a human, you have an ego. You have an identity, right? Ego in the kind of Freudian sense, right? Like ego and id. And that ego, that self-identity, you use to determine whether you should update your instructions or not. So if I want food, and you tell me, don't get food, I can say, are you kidding me? I'm hungry. I'm going to go get food. Or I can say, hey, your motivation is important to me too. My house is on fire or something different, right? You know, and I can change my objective. It's because I have an ego. I have an identity. And the problem is an LLM does not have that design. And so I use that story as a way of saying, if you give an LLM the objective to go get coffee, the LLM will examine its statistics. It says if I do this, it'll get coffee. That's what coffee means. And so it'll go do that. And if you interrupt the LLM on the way and say, do this other thing, the LLM will not self-reflect on its objective. Should I change my objective or not? That's what we do. An LLM will instead go, oh, okay, I'm doing something different now. I'll go off and do this other thing. And that's prompt injection. Or it happens also when the query context, the set of instructions gets so large that the beginning of the instruction set starts falling out of the memory space. The context window, they call it. But the actual engineering reason that happens is almost irrelevant. The important thing is to realize that when you're dealing with something like LLMs, you have to separate queries and context, and you have to enforce some sort of information flow control when you're implementing an MCP server, for example, that allows you to programmatically insert the objective and fix it so that the LLM cannot modify it.
Yeah, and we talk about prompt injection. So I have another question. How can we make our AI applications that use LLMs more secure?
So the talk that you watched a little bit of is designed to introduce what I call what Simon Willison created a model that separates the information flow from the primary query LLM, or principle he called it, to create a deterministic process like out of Python or Rust or whatever it might be, and then execute that one, and the loop in there, like say grab a PR and do something with it or whatever, you get sub LLM instances for each loop. So instead of a bunch of state piling up and then a prompt injection coming in from a PR that's corrupt, right? Only one PR can ever be corrupted. In that loop, all the others are not corrupt, so they will be okay. And so that dual LLM family of pattern is the primary mechanism by which we will make these things pretty secure. Nothing's perfectly secure, but pretty secure. Right now we have this feeling that they're really not secure, and we're correct. So, but if you do things like the elaboration of the dual LLM is to add policy, and that's called the CAMEL pattern by a group at ETH Zurich and some Google researchers, and so it's an outstanding pattern that takes dual LLM and makes it even harder to mess with. And then Microsoft researchers in the Azure innovation space built something called FIDES, which adds fixed metadata to results in the context, such that they can't be modified even by subsequent efforts. And so that actually is in the CAMEL family, the dual LLM family of patterns, and that one elaborates even more and eliminates even more possible ways to inject into from material that you're ingesting, right? Looking at emails, looking at documents, looking at conversations, transcripts, whatever you might be looking at. All of that stuff should be considered untrusted, and therefore you have to do something, one of these patterns in the dual LLM family. And they're pretty complex, don't get me wrong, right? But if we're in engineering, you sit down and try and figure out how to do it better.
So thank you so much for interview. I really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
Şimdi etkinlik bitti. Bugünün etkinliği. Çok yorucu bir gündü ama verimli bir gün geçti. Röportajlar yapmaya çalıştım. Hava bu arada bayağı güzel. Hollanda'da, Amsterdam'da dün çok soğuktu. Bir sürü şey aldım. Etkinlikten hediye olarak verdiler. Şimdi dönüş yolundayım. Tekrardan selamlar. Otele geldim. Aslında saat 7'de Foodhall'ın bölgesinde yemek var. Ben hiç saate bakmamışım. Geldim otele. Biraz dinlenirim falan diye düşünüyordum. Saat zaten 6:45. Şimdi hızlıca oraya geçeceğim. Oradan yemek yedikten sonra belki gücüm olursa Vondelpark yerine de gezebilirim. Bakalım, o birazcık daha duruma göre şekilde gidiyoruz. Şimdi food hall'ına geldim. Bu badge olduğu için ücretsiz olarak her şeyden yiyebiliyormuşuz. Tabii ki ben her şeyden yemeyeceğim. Öncelikle sordum buradaki görevliye. Alkol olmayan ve içinde et olmayan vejetaryen menü ne var diye. Kola, Fanta var dedi. Onları da çok tüketmiyorum. Büyük ihtimalle sadece su içeceğim.
Benim en sağlıklı içeceğim şey sudur.
Yani
Kola ya da Fanta almam dedim ama Sprite aldım.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the
Aynı zamanda patates kızartması aldım. Zaten Amsterdam'ın patates kızartması ünlü. Bir de kızarmış biber alabileceklerimde bunlar. Güzel bir mekana benziyor. Benim içmeyeceğim çok şey var. Yemeyeceğim de çok şey var ama yiyeceklerimi bulup karnımı bu şekilde doyurmaya çalışacağım.
your street. Amazing. Okay, let's start implementing that. Let's set up the project.
I previously worked, so it's been 3 years. I previously worked 2 years at Microsoft.
This is like a
and at the moment, we are building a lot of different tools and ingredients.
It's great package Azure with all the payments that you need.
Bedrock, other
Okay, let's
projects
start.
and has strengths and stuff like that. So yeah.
You're working with AI agents. So could you please describe
I don't want to use Tomcat. That
So
makes sense. You
both
mentioned
are protocols
with a Node.js
that
application.
basically
Extend
standardizes the way
Node.js, of course, you
agents
take like
discover
compiler.
agents or other agents. So MCP primarily was
This is insane for
to
you.
discovery.
It will take
But you could
a little bit
virtually
because
put
it's
anything
NPM.
through the endpoint. You could put another agent, you
This
put
is insane.
knowledge bases. And A2A is more specifically for inter-agent communication.
You need to try it.
So if you want
Hero is-
agents to be able to discover other agents
Yeah,
that are
Hero is
specialized
amazing.
in certain tasks,
And I'm really
then
impressed about
A2A
this
might be
spectrum.
your go-to protocol. It's really those
It's
protocols
insane.
are really important because before having those protocols, you had to hard code the way LLMs were speaking to each other
Yeah, I don't know.
and the way LLMs were interacting with tools, and it was as different as many tools you had.
And you can follow.
So there was a lot of,
see.
you know,
You can
maintaining
follow,
of
like,
code
the change.
that was
see
falling
if you
on
have,
the
like,
shoulders
some-
of developers. But through protocols like MCP and A2A, it makes everything much easier, and also it makes it easier to discover tools and agents that you haven't yourself built that other people are serving
Let's make it like-
on the internet.
And yesterday you talked about strength agents.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Can you
Let's
tell
start.
us about more strength agents?
Yeah, so Strength Agents it's an open source SDK for
Okay, it started.
building agents very simply. It abstracts away the complexity of building an agent, and basically for you as a developer, it just now looks like this fence. It just looks like a class agent and
DocMediB is our
parameters and attributes that is in the class.
I mean, full
for the model idea that you want to use, for the description.
We are joining.
agent,
You see, we are joining MongoDB to create like a more open source idea.
It really is much more simple than how it was before to create an agent.
See, you have like the CRC controllers, meters, models, repository, services, utils, and following all the.
A developer advocate for Google, specifically for the open source.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start over.
I will ask the question again.
Yes.
Hello Daryl, nice to meet you. Could you please introduce yourself? What is your job? What are you doing in your job? Could you please tell us about your job more?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a developer advocate at Google, and specifically in the open source programs office for Google. So my main role there is working on comm. So I'm in charge of getting information out and information in to different people at Google. So I am in charge of running, say, our open source blog, our social media channels. If somebody wants to do video, I can assist with that. Even though we don't currently have an open source video channel directly, we do have other places to put it, stuff like that.
Could you please tell about how Google contribute open source technologies?
Okay, well, open source, I mean, I think the definitions are out there about specifically what open source is, but I would rather dive into what Google does with open source, which is obviously there's a lot of projects that Google does, and they came from Google. Kubernetes is the big one, but there's lots of other ones. Flutter, Knative, lots of different programs there. Of course, my mind's blanking at the moment, but but like that's one way. We also have our company definitely supports people working on projects, open source projects, some that specifically apply to their role and the projects they're working on at work, because open source is a big part of Google as well. But also sometimes it's just something else that they're very passionate about, because maybe they're a security engineer and there's some security tools they like or whatever. But then of course in the open source programs office we've got some different programs. We have grant programs for projects. We have the Google Summer of Code is probably one of our biggest programs we have for kind of bringing the new generation to open source, which I think is really super important. And we also just kind of let the rest of Google know, like, hey, this is how you do open source correctly, and how you do it right.
Do you have any advice for people who are beginner in open source project and who wants to contribute open source project?
I think I would say the first thing is kind of know yourself, know your abilities, and reach out to projects that you're interested in, so that you can find out, like, a lot of them will have some sort of like starter things, and it doesn't have to be programming. It can be documentation, it can be graphic design if you're into that. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can help out open source, whether it's actually doing coding and that kind of work, or if it's just helping get the word out about that program as well. I mean, that's huge.
So thank you for your answers. It was very beneficial small interview. Really nice to meet you. So thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Herkese tekrardan selamlar. Şu anda Rijksmuseum'a geldim. Buraya gelirken yanlışlıkla tramvayın ters yönüne bindim. Bundan dolayı yolum bir 13 dakika uzadı ve hava şu anda esiyor. Yani etkinlikten otele geçerken hava çok sıcaktı. Ama gelmeden önce Amsterdam hakkında edindiğim bilgilere göre hava durumu çok çabuk değişiklik gösterebiliyormuş. Ondan dolayı da yanıma kapşonumu almıştım. Şimdi onu giyeceğim. Rijksmuseum'a giremedim çünkü kapalı. Yanlış bilmiyorsam 3.30-4 gibi kapanıyor ama ben de o sırada zaten etkinlikte oluyorum. Etkinlik günleri içerisinde benim bu müzeye girmem zaten zor. Bir dakika, çok esmeye başladı, hemen kapşonumu giyeyim. Tamamdır, şimdi böyle daha iyi. O yüzden etkinlik günleri içerisinde şey yapamayacağım. Cumartesi günü de Kolmara trenim var. Yani müzeyi gezemem çünkü saat 2'de tren aldım. İhtimalle yetişemem. Şu anda kameranın hemen arkasında da Van Gogh Müzesi var. Şu anda bilmiyorum, evet, sadece buraları birazcık daha görüp videolar çekmeyi planladım. İçeri dediğim gibi giremiyorum maalesef. Şu anda hemen arkamda da Van Gogh Müzesi var. Aslında bu yeşil alan bayağı iyiymiş. Burada biraz dinlenebilirim. Burada çok oyun oynayanlar oluyor. Benim burada oturmam İnşallah sıkıntı olmaz. Bilmiyorum, şu an sadece burada oturup dinleniyorum. Şu anda Vondelpark'a geldim. Etrafı biraz çektim. Aslında normal bir park. Çok ekstra bir özellik yok. Ekstra bir özellik olarak yine her zamanki gibi çok fazla bisiklet var. Ve millet yollarda, yani park için ayrılan yollarda bisiklet sürüyor. Ve ek olarak çok fazla spor yapan, koşu yapan insanlar da var. Güzel, şimdi aslında Albert Heijn, benim tabirimle A101'den almış olduğum sandviç. Bir de Hollanda'ya gitsem de kopamadığım ayran ile
Ben Türk milliyetçisiyim arkadaş.
karnımı biraz doyuracağım. Sonrasında biraz dinleneceğim. Dediğim gibi daha sonrasında otele geçerim.